worship today. I didn't even hear you singing. Kind of down this morning, so I didn't hear you singing loud.
On there, click it on over there.
It's on. This always happens with me.
You're on
It
here.
doesn't happen with Josh. I think this thing knows I'm not Josh. And it's
Oh,
like,
he's not going right
somebody
there.
else. He's got a lot more hair.
We found it.
All right, you there? All right, sweet. How are you guys doing today? Great. Good. Okay, so when this thing first started, this thing we call church first started back 2,000 years ago, and they were called the early church. They met, do you know when they met? It was actually really cool. They met, a lot of them met early in the morning. Like really early, like dusk. All right?
Dusk.
Dawn. That's back then. They met at dawn. See, don't you like, I make you guys laugh a lot more. Anyway, so they met at dawn. It was really early. Do you know why they met at dawn? Because a lot of the people that came to church were slaves. And they had a full day's work. And so for them all to meet and for them all to have time of worship and prayer together, they met early so the slaves could get up early, go have their time with the other believers, and then get to work the rest of the day. And I know this is the early service, and we're not necessarily getting up at dawn. But real quick, what I want you to do is I want you to take all that's on your mind and I want you to put it to the side. I want you to take the trouble that you had this morning with the kids, getting them ready. I want you to take your financial situation that's on your mind. I want you to take the fight you had with your spouse the other day. I want you to take whatever's going on in your life that could obstruct your view today, and I want you to put it to the side. Because today we are meeting with our family. We are here together with other believers in Christ. And we have the opportunity for a little more than an hour to worship, to pray, to learn, and to grow. But we can't do that if we're sitting there in our seats worrying. So I want you to take whatever that is, and I want you to throw it up here and say, right now, I choose to sing, I choose to pray, I choose to listen, and I choose to be with this gathering of believers we got. Can you all do that with me? Yes. Let's grow today. Let's become stronger today. And let's start off with prayer. Dear God, thank you for today. Thank you that we all have freedom. Thank you that we have the privilege. And thank you that we have the ability to come together and worship together in your house. God, I pray that whoever's out there, whether they are right, following the path, they're not struggling with anything all the way to the other end of the spectrum, to somebody who feels like they're broken and they can't do anything right. God, I pray that today we worship you. Today we engage in worship. We engage in what happens in this place. And we leave these doors ready to go out to a broken world and ready to change it and ready to impact it. Today, I want us to get that rest and to get that encouragement we need. And I know your Spirit can provide it. And this fellowship between us can provide it. So be with us today. Let your Spirit work. Let it do whatever it wants to do, God. We are here with open hearts, open minds, and an open soul to listen to you. In your name we pray, amen. Let's keep on worshiping, okay, guys? And thank you for coming here today.
Victoria.
no matter what comes against us, that we will stand with arms high and our hearts abandoned to you. Father, we love you and we praise you. And we thank you for all the goodness that you poured out on us that is entirely undeserved. So Jesus, we just ask that you go with us through the rest of this service. Holy Spirit, that you will stay here with us. Because you have been so sweet this morning already. And we want more of you. We want more of you. So I ask that you be with with Christian as he brings the message today. Lord, I pray that you will give him boldness, that you will give him the exact words he needs, that you would pour your spirit out on him today, and that you would preach with fire. And Lord, that you would stir in us a hunger for your word today, and that we would walk out of here different than when we came in. That we would be so different that our coworkers and our families and our friends would notice and wonder what is going on. So Lord, we just praise you and we thank you. I ask that you put protection around Christian today, or that you keep anything away from him that would want to distract him or cause him to question what it is you've given him today. And Lord, we just ask all these things in your name. Amen.
So, in the grand scheme of animal rivalries, none is bigger than dog versus cat. Wouldn't you agree with me? They've even made like movies about this. How many of you are dog people? Unashamed, like you're a dog all the way. How many of you are cat people? All the way. How many of you don't want anything in the house? You're just like, as long as that's fine, I'll keep them outside. All right, so when it comes to it, I'm a dog person. Now, that's not to say I'm not like Joshua has like a phobia of cats. I think there are good cats, like the ones that just lay there, let you pet them and whatnot. And then I think there's bad cats that I could do without. I don't think they're worth anything, but that's just my personal opinion. But dogs, the only thing that you need to make a dog good is just give it attention. Love it. And then the dog will be like your best friend. You know, that's what the old saying is. Dogs are, they feel empathy for you. Like have you ever had a dog that it's like, you know it feels your pain. It listens to you most of the time. It'll play with you. A cat, most cats, you throw a ball at it, it just stares at you like, are you gonna go get that now? But a dog, it does all these things, but there's one thing dogs can't do. They can't operate like big technology, like an MRI machine or something like that. But cats can. That was a complete, it wasn't at the end, you weren't ready for that. You thought that had something to do with the sermon, didn't you? I'm going to move this back because Lord knows I'm going to fall over it. Anyway, I'm so glad y'all can make it today. Let's dig in. We are in our Seeing Jesus series. This is week 3. So we're going to keep talking about it and looking through and diagnosing this. Picture this with me. It's after church. You're hungry. Always. Duh, right? And you go to your favorite restaurant. You're a little tired. You want that Sunday afternoon nap, but you're not going to get it. So you're a little cranky. It's been a busy week. And you go to your favorite restaurant. And you're going to order your favorite thing. And the server comes out and says, sorry, we're out of it. And you're like, okay. Put the knife to the side. And then you continue to give bad attitude, or you have to wait for 30 minutes or longer, and you're just in a bad attitude. And then other people are watching you, and that server's watching you with this bad attitude right after you got done out of church. They even overheard you talking about the service, about how the pastor preached too long, or whatever. Take it another step. Imagine this with me. Let's say you're in Walmart, and you're ready to check out, and of course they only have 2 lanes open. Because they always only have 2 lanes open, right? And they've got all these people running around in like this special yellow jackets, and it's like, what does the yellow jacket mean? That you don't know how to work a cash register? But anyway, so you're already mad at that. It's been a busy day. You're stressed. You roll over there. You're checking out, and then there's a kid in line behind you, and he starts losing his ever-loving mind. You've all been there. So you're sitting there, and you're like, what is going on? Like, does she not know what she's doing if it's a mom by herself? And you turn around, and you're kind of just glaring at these people. And you don't even know you're glaring. It's just kind of natural. Because this mom doing her best, she doesn't know what's going on. Maybe a new mother, maybe she's just not a good parent, either or. You don't know what's going on. She doesn't know what she's doing, and the kid's losing his mind. You're just like, really? Like, can you not control your kid? Let's take it, imagine this with me. Let's say you just got done at like a sports game, or you just got done watching TV, your favorite sport, and your sports team lost. Does that put you in a bad attitude? How many people see that? So we're supposed to be imitators of Jesus. Imitators. Do you know what imitating means? It's like a puppeteer and a puppet. If Jesus does this, we're supposed to do this. We're supposed to imitate literally everything Jesus does. But how close are we really getting? So I'm going to ask you this today, and this is going to be our main thought. Do people see Jesus in you? So today we're going to take a look at ourselves. And when we're going through this today, I want to look at some examples of how Jesus was and see if we line up with them. And I want you to examine yourself, but I also want you to examine two other things. This church. When we're talking about all this, don't just think of yourself. I want you to think of this church. Does the gathering, do people see Jesus when they think of the gathering? When they see what we do in the community, when they see how we are in the community, when they see us cut somebody off and we have the gathering sticker on the back of our car. But I also want you to think about the church as a whole. Not just this church, but I mean the Christian church around the world. Does the Christian church around the world show Jesus? Do people see that? Is that the first thing they notice? So let's go through a couple things and let's examine them, okay? So are they seeing a humble servant, or are people seeing a better-than-you snob? Jesus healed a lot of sick people, and he spent time with a lot of poor people, and he talked to a lot of poor people. Remember, back in the day, there wasn't like movies or theaters or anything. People, when there was a new speaker in town, people followed him around because that was like entertainment. All right, so a lot of poor people followed Jesus around listening to him. Mark chapter 2, starting in verse 15. This is right after Matthew, the disciple, decided to follow Jesus. And they're eating over at Matthew's house. Mark chapter 2, verse 15. And as he reclined at the table in his house, many tax collectors and sinners were reclining with Jesus and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. Are you getting that? That's crazy. So Jesus is sitting in this house. It's definitely not a big house. All right, it's not like some mansion, so the living room is pretty small. And Jesus is sitting there reclining, and these sinners and tax collectors are listening, and they're eating with him. And so it says, and the scribes of the Pharisees, so scribes mean they were people who worked for the Pharisees, the religious leaders of the preachers, for lack of a better word, in Israel. These scribes who wrote down stuff for them and did like tasks for them, they're walking by this house. And they see there's like this big crowd of people like standing outside of the door looking in the windows, and they're like, what is going on in there? So, you know, like most people do who are nosy, they look in and they see Jesus, this prophet, who's apparently healing people and preaching this new message and saying God's kingdom is here on earth now. They see him and they're like, why is he surrounded by all these people? Does he even know who he's eating with? So they went up to his disciples. One of the scribes went up to his disciples and says, hey, why is Jesus eating with these people? And Jesus overheard him. You ever had like your spouse or something, you say something under your breath and they're like, uh-huh? And you're like, I did not know you could hear that. I need to be quieter. I need to learn to whisper. But that's what it is. They asked his disciples, they were like, hey, why is Jesus eating with these guys? And Jesus over here says, I can tell you that. And they're like, whoa. Jesus says, those who are well have no need of a doctor, but those who are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners. So imagine this with me. We just had a huge weekend that everybody either looks forward to or doesn't look forward to every year. You know what I'm talking about. Rocklahoma. And I want you to picture this. What if I came up to you and I said, hey, I want to do something. Let's open your house. Let's open my house. I want to take like 20 people from Rocklahoma and I want to bring them over and I want to feed them. And I want to talk with them. I don't want to like make them like, you have to listen to this and we're going to go through the Bible, but I want to feed them. I want to spend time with them. I want to talk with them. Either you're in your head going, that's really cool, or you're in your head going, I'm super uncomfortable even thinking about that. How many of you would be okay with that? So, somewhere in the past, we got this idea that as Christians, we don't have to help people. You know, we got this idea that we don't have to help all people. How many of you growing up, I mean, this is me, this is just how it was, but, you know, downtown Tulsa, North Tulsa, anything like that, even in Ryerson, you're driving by, you stop at a red light, or it's usually sometimes the on-ramps to the highway, and there's your homeless person. You know they're there, so you don't make eye contact. They have a cardboard sign that says, "Veteran, God bless," all that, will work for food or whatnot. And in the back of your head, you're trained to say, oh, well, they're a druggie. Oh, well, they're an alcoholic. They're an abusive person. They probably gambled their money away. That's why they lost their house. You're trained, and you know, you're sitting there going, yeah, I'm guilty of that. And you're trained automatically to think, okay, not giving them any money. And I don't have time to stop and get them like a burger or to take them to the grocery store or something. How many of you following me? You getting it? It's in the back of our head. But somewhere along the line, we got this idea that just because people are different than us, or maybe lower, or maybe not Christians, that we don't associate with them. So that's not our job. When it's the exact opposite. People see the kindness of Jesus and it speaks to them. They feel like they can come as they are. Not have to rise up first to be accepted. What does that mean? It means somewhere along the line we've told people, hey, you can't come into the church doors unless you're dressed a certain way, looked a certain way, and not acting a certain way in life. Then you can come into church. But that's exactly backwards of how it should be. People should be able to walk in here as they are, and we should be here like, hey man, come on in. And then when the Spirit convicts, then their life begins to change. But if we put that and say, hey, you need to change this, this, and this, that's not real change. They're just doing it to be accepted by humans, which who cares about human exception? It means nothing at the end of the day. But if we invite them in and we say, hey, come try this life-giving water that we have, that we've been given. And then the Spirit convicts them, and then they change because of that. Do you see the difference there? That's real conviction versus us putting an image and saying, this is the mold you have to fit to come into church and be a Christian. And people see that mold, and they go, no, I'm good. I don't need it. Casting Crowns has a great song. It's called Does Anybody Hear Her? How many of you have ever heard the song before? I love Casting Crowns. If you ever get the chance to go to one of their concerts, you should, because it's not really a concert, it's more like a worship setting. Like, it's awesome stuff. But one of the lines in the bridge of that song says, if judgment looms under every steeple, if lofty glances from lofty people can't see past her scarlet letter, and we never even met her. It's like, guys, man, nobody out there is perfect. We can't put that image on people and expect them to change just to come into church. Do you know what I'm saying? We're not going to reach everybody we need to be reaching if we do that. So are they saying a humble servant, or are they saying a better than you snob? Go to the next one. Are they saying a truth proclaimer or a fearful messenger? Nowadays we are too afraid to teach, proclaim, or defend what the Bible teaches. Wouldn't you agree? There are so many pastors, there are so many churches who are so afraid of what the book says. They don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. They don't want to be crucified for it. They don't want to be martyred for it. They don't want to be shunned away for it. But that is not how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to proclaim what this book says. We're supposed to be unashamed of what Jesus stands for. Unashamed of what Jesus stands for. Not, okay, the Bible mentions this, but we don't have to talk about this. Let's just say love. Love. Love everybody. Hugs. Hugs right now. No, we're supposed to be unashamed. Okay, so Jesus was known for saying a lot of things that got the crowd fired up. I think he kind of liked it. Just me. Maybe Jesus' human side was like, okay, I'm going to say this, so this will get him going. Jesus was known for saying a lot of things that twisted people's minds. It was just the opposite of what they were thinking. John chapter 8. Turn to this real quick. John chapter 8, starting in verse 56. Jesus is talking to this group of Jews in the temple. And this dialogue goes on for at least 2 chapters before this, give or take. And this is towards the end of it, and Jesus is just arguing with these Jews about different things. And they go from a wide range of stuff. All right, but it ends like this. Jesus says to them, your father Abraham rejoiced that he would see my day. He saw it and was glad. That's what he says to the Jews. And the Jews are like, okay, dude's crazy. Okay, Abraham, so you know, timeline. Jesus, around 100 AD, a little less than that, probably around the 30 AD mark is when he started his 3.5-year ministry. At least 2,000 years before that, if not 3,000, give or take, that's when Abraham was. So Jesus is saying, your father Abraham rejoiced that he would see my day. He saw it and was glad. So these Jews hear that and they're like, did he just say he's seen Abraham? That dude was like 3,000 years ago. He's dead now. He's gone. So the Jews are like, so the Jews said to him, you are not yet 50 years old and you have seen Abraham. And I can imagine a lot of them laughing and whatnot. And Jesus says, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. So they picked up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple. I am. What does that mean? Well, the actual phrase is, I am that I am. And that comes from when Moses was talking to God during the burning bush. You guys have all know the Sunday school story. But Moses is like, you know, God told Moses, hey, go free my people, go over to Pharaoh and tell him let my people go. And Moses is like, dude, it's Pharaoh, king of Egypt, like the biggest empire in the world. Who am I supposed to tell who sent me? Some burning bush? And God says, tell Pharaoh that I am sent you. And it's really cool if you look at what that means. Actually, another cool point is Jews, to this day, don't say that out loud in Hebrew. They don't say that out loud. That's how much reverence they have for that word. They don't say it out loud. But what it means is it has past and future tense properties. In better words, like a better translation, it would mean, I am whatever I need to be. I am that I am. I'm not, I was. I'm not, I'm going to be. It's I am. I've always been, I always will be. And so when God says this, He's like, I am everything. And I'm never going to end. So it's this huge proclamation. Okay, so you know the background. They didn't even say this word out loud when they were like preaching or whatnot. Like this is, you don't say this. And Jesus has the guts to get up in front of these people, this group of Jews, and say, I am. Because if you look at the grammar, he would have said, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I was. That's the correct grammar. But that's not what he says. He says, before Abraham was, I am. Which is unmistakable. He's comparing himself to God. He's calling himself God. It says they picked up stones to throw at him. They were going to kill this guy. That's like a death sentence like that. Jesus knew they were going to pick up the stones. He knew the punishment for that. He knew the consequence, but he had to declare it because it's truth. The same is with these unpopular teachings nowadays. The things that get people in trouble, the things that people hate us for. You're going to lose some friends. Maybe a job, maybe family, possibly even your life. Yes, more Christians are killed today than they were during the Roman Empire, in case you were unaware of that. But we must profess what he says. If we don't tell the truth, then what are we doing? Take the Bible as all or take it as none of it. We can't pick and choose. This is not right. On the flip side, though, in proclaiming real truth and judgment, don't forget to be careful with how we speak. In 1 Corinthians, you can turn to chapter 4 because I do want you to write some of these, or highlight some of these, or underline them. This is the first letter to Corinth. The church in Corinth, the ancient Greek city of Corinth, was really immoral and really bad. In fact, historians wrote about, bragging about how there was at one time at least 1,000 temple prostitutes in this city, just out for everyone to see. Like, this was a bad city. Like, you think Vegas is bad or what? No. Corinth was not a good city, and there was a small church in Corinth. So you can only imagine. You can only imagine the troubles they were having, and the church had a lot of problems. This isn't the first letter Paul wrote to them, but it's the recorded letter that we have. We don't have the letter that came before this, but Paul is writing to correct them on some things. There was a lot of sexual immorality in the church. There was leadership issues. They had problems. They didn't know who to follow. Like they were having problems with following Peter or Paul or this other guy named Apollos. There's a lot of problems. And so Paul writes this letter to address those problems and to reaffirm their faith. In fact, the sexual immorality was so bad that in the church, it got to the point where a son took his mother and they had sexual relations. Like, it was a bad deal. All right? And you got to understand, in Greek culture, ancient Greek culture, that was all accepted. Like, there's whatever you want to do. All right? So everybody who says America is like as worse as it gets, no. You got to look at ancient history to see the really bad stuff. But, so, Paul is writing this letter, and he's correcting them on some really important things. Like, the one I just mentioned about the son and mom, that's as bad as you get. You know what I mean? But he writes, if you look at verse 14, he says, I do not write these things to make you ashamed, but to admonish you as my beloved children. You see the kindness there? Skip down to verse 21. He says, what do you wish? Shall I come to you with a rod or with love and a spirit of gentleness? Paul knows that, hey, he's going to get more flies with honey than vinegar. Sometimes, yeah, you got to tell people, hey, you're doing wrong and you need to change because there's a place waiting for sinners, and man, I don't want you to go there. We can't be afraid, but at the same time, when you're passing judgment on somebody, you're telling them, hey, this is wrong. You can do it in a spirit of gentleness. You can do it with a spirit of love. Do you guys see the difference there? And that's something I think a lot of people just hear hellfire and brimstone, they're automatically turned off, when in fact that might be true. Might be more effective to use a different technique. Let's go to the next thing. Now, when people look at you in this church and the church as a whole, are they seeing open and welcome hands, or are they seeing crossed arms? We've all sinned. No one is perfect. And guess what? You were, at one point, or still are, a sinner too. Just like everyone else. Romans chapter 3, verse 22. I will wait for you to get to this one, because if you don't have this underlined, you need to. Romans chapter 3, verse 22. Paul's writing to the church in Rome. For there is no distinction. And you guys know this. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And if you go back to verse 10, in that same chapter, Paul's quoting here, but he says, none is righteous. No, not one. Back to 1 Corinthians, you don't have to follow this one. Back to 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7, it says, what do you have that you did not receive? If then you received it, why do you boast as if you did not receive it? I love that. Paul's talking to these Christians, and he's saying, look, you weren't always a Christian. At one point you were lost. You were lost just like everybody out there you're condemning. So why are you sitting here saying, those sinners, those heathens? No! You were just as lost as them. And you received this salvation by the grace and gift of God. You did nothing to receive it. So do not cast judgment on them for being lost, no matter how lost they seem. Instead, go get them. And then Romans chapter 2, verse 11, for God shows no partiality. No matter the sex, no matter the race, no matter the country, God shows, no matter the class, the wealth situation, no matter what, God shows no partiality. It rains on the just and the unjust. You got to really check out Matthew, though. Matthew's story, one of the 12 disciples. We talked about it a little earlier, but now I'm going to really go back. Matthew, or he has another name, Levi, they called him. Okay, so Jesus is teaching with the crowds again. This is early in his ministry. He doesn't even have all the 12 disciples yet. So he's teaching with these crowds, and he sees Matthew sitting at a tax collector booth. And he calls him. I can almost like picture it. Like, you guys know I make like videos and I do stuff like that. So all the time when I picture something, I picture it like a movie would look like. And so I almost just see Jesus teaching, and like for a split second, like someone walks past Jesus and you can see like a glimpse of Matthew. And then he just calls out to him and says, follow me. And Matthew's like, whoa. Now, a little info on tax collectors. This time was during the Roman Empire. And if you know anything about ancient history, Rome didn't get to be the biggest empire in the world because they were nice. No, these were bad guys. Like, they were super powerful army, great government. They knew how to run until later, when pretty much Christianity destroyed them. And so they had control over Israel. And they put tax collectors throughout all these countries they controlled, because every country, every citizen had to pay tax back to Caesar. You guys remember the other passage in Jesus where somebody asks, hey, do we pay taxes? And Jesus says, give to Caesar's what is Caesar, but give to God what is God. You guys remember that one? Same thing. Matthew is a tax collector, okay? But he's a Jew. So in essence, it would be like if somebody, let's say, somebody took over America and was ruling over America, and somebody who was born here, an American, became a tax collector for them. Like, they worked for the country who's our enemies, who's over us, and who's ruling over us. Would you be buddy-buddy with them? No. So Matthew was seen as a traitor. Matthew was seen as somebody who betrayed his people for money. Not only were tax collectors viewed as traitors, they were viewed as thieves. Because when you come to collect taxes, or say somebody owed you taxes, guess what? You had these Roman soldiers who could do some pretty bad stuff and were not to be messed with. So let's say Matthew comes to your house and he says, hey, you owe me 200. And you're like, no, clearly I owe you only like 100 or 150. And Matthew's like, see these two guys I got behind me? Check out their swords, their armor. Yeah, you owe me 200. And you're like, okay, here's 200. So Matthew is viewed as a traitor and a thief. So he probably lived alone or with his family, or probably shunned from a lot of stuff. But anyway, so Jesus calls, Matthew, come follow me. And you can imagine the crowd. Quiet. And they're just looking at Matthew, gets up, and follows Jesus. That's crazy. Can you imagine, like, Peter and them at this point? They're like, okay, dude's really lost his mind here. Does he know what he is? He's a tax collector. He's a thief. He's a traitor. Matthew left it all at his tax booth. All the money, everything. And right after that is where we talked about earlier. They went to Matthew's house and they ate, and all the sinners and other tax collectors came in to hear Jesus talk. And I have a question. How many people do you think would leave it all, but they are never given the chance? How many people do you think would leave it all at your work, in your family, in porn, in a restaurant? How many people do you think would leave it all if we just said, hey, come to church, come give it a try? But they're never given the chance because all they see is this. Are they seeing an open invitation or a closed door? We have an obligation to reach the lost. 2.6 billion unreached people in the world. 2.6 billion. That's a big number. You know what unreached means? Never heard of Jesus, never seen a Bible, don't have connection to a church. 2.6 billion. But that doesn't mention all the people that know about Jesus, know about church, living in this community, but are still lost and choose not to follow Jesus, or they've never been invited, or all they've seen is bad experiences with Christians. So you could probably double that number, if not more. We have an obligation to reach them. Let me remind you, this thing called the Great Commission, Matthew chapter 28, 18 through 20. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, not just the nations that are safe. Baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Teaching them, so don't just get them saved, dunk them, and say, all right, bye. Teaching them to obey all I've commanded you. And then go back to Romans chapter 10. And I'm going to wait for you to turn here because I want you to underline this one too. Romans chapter 10, verse 14. This is great. This is like one of mine and Danielle's favorite verses. How then will they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him of whom they have never heard? And how are they to hear without someone's preaching? And how are they to preach unless they are sent? I'm going to keep going back to this Oklahoma example because I have been so convicted the last 2 weeks. I cannot get it out of my head. Meanwhile, I sit back and I make fun of what people are wearing, or they're just wasting their life or spending that much money, but they are lost. And we sit here and just judge. When we should take a tent, go down there, hand out bottles of water and tracts and free Bibles and talk to those people. But we stay in our nice, comfy walls. I'm telling you what, I don't know about y'all and I don't know about this church, but next year I'm taking a tent and I'm going out there. It's a mission field and it's 2 miles away. All right, so check these out. White t-shirt. Notice anything? Is there anything unique about it? Does it look pretty normal? It's a small, so I probably couldn't fit it. I'd have to go medium at least. Would you agree it's pretty normal? Nod your head if you think it's normal. Okay. Sweet. Just gotta make sure. Do you remember what the white t-shirt looked like? Okay. All right. Here's another. Same? What caught your eye? Guys, that's like less than 5% of the whole shirt, and you're paying attention to less than 5% of the whole shirt than the other 95. Why were you drawn to that? Because it was different? Kind of stood out to you? Okay. All right. What about this one? I still think if you add all that red up, it's only like 30% of the shirt. But are you even focused on the white anymore? Huh. Okay. You know, that's how a lot of us look as Christians. And we say, oh, it's okay. We're a Christian. I'm good. But yet, here's a mess up. Here's a mess up. Here's us. Oh, yeah, you know, I'm not really convicted about rated R movies. I feel fine watching them. But, you know, I'm going to go see a movie like that and let other people know who might not feel the same way or might be just now starting to follow Christianity. But that's okay, because I don't need to worry about them or what they view. Well, here's that Facebook post I made being hateful, or here's what I said behind someone's back. Here's the way I am to that family member I don't like. But here's all the good. Do you see all the white? There's all the good. There's the Bible. There's me praying. There's me going to church. There's me giving $5 to the homeless man. There's me working at the LP project. There's me giving to the building fund. There's me, all that white. Don't focus on this 30%. Don't. But what do people always see? They always see our mess-ups before they see our good. Now, am I telling you to be like this perfect white t-shirt over here? No, we can't. None of us are perfect. We're not Jesus. But the difference is, there's Jesus. We're supposed to try to be like that. Are we going to have red on us? Yes. We are. We're going to mess up. Even when you're a Christian. Even when you are an older, wiser Christian and you've done this for years at a time, we're still going to mess up. But we're striving for this. Not okay with this. People see this. And this turns people off from this thing we call church. So, about, I think it was 2010 or 2011, I was going to this convention in Oklahoma City. I was actually a youth myself, and it was our mission trip. So during the day, we went and worked at like shelters or whatever place needed us. And then during the night, we'd go to this youth convention. It was really awesome. And, you know, it had been good so far. And then one night, we heard that the next night, there's actually going to be a Lady Gaga concert. And I don't know how many of you know who Lady Gaga is, but she's a very worldly singer. Actually, kind of, I have to give her credit. She's cleaned up her act a lot since when she first got famous, but this is when she first got famous. And the convention I was at, a lot of the people were very traditional. So men were wearing suits and ties, King James Bible, women were wearing dresses, and Lady Gaga concert, like the men were wearing dresses, okay? Like it's the exact opposite. I don't mean, I'm like, it's a joke, but I'm kind of being serious. Like just very revealing clothing, like you can just, it's the Cox Convention Center and then the Chesapeake, right? And the Chesapeake right there. And the both sidewalks, it's just like, whoa, what the heck? And so we know this Lady Gaga's concert's coming, and we get word that guess who's going to be there? Westboro Baptist Church. And they're going to picket both of us. We had a comedian that night who was like, Lady Gaga, Westboro Baptist. You Baptists know how to run a convention. It was kind of interesting. It was weird. I've never been picketed before. So that was cool. I really wanted to have him on, but that's not good. So anyway, and you guys know, if you don't know Westboro Baptist, I mean, I don't know how you couldn't know, but if you don't know them, they're a church. And they're the ones who walk around to different places and protest military funerals, and they protest abortion clinics, which I'm not defending abortion, but I'm questioning the method, and if that works at all. And they're the ones who hold the signs that say God hates fags, and burn in hell fag, and stuff like that. And they're not winning anybody. They're just driving away with their hate and their cult-likeness. And they were... What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say one person, one church can run multitudes of people trying to reach the lost. So if you be that rude person, if you be that unaccepting person, that unwelcoming person, if you're that, and you encounter somebody who like 20 other people are currently working on to get in church or talking to, and they get one reaction from you, like that server at the restaurant, or that mom who's struggling with the kid at Walmart, and they get one negative reaction from you, and then they hear you talk about church, or they see you at church, or they see the sticker on your car, they are instantly turned off. So let me ask you again. After we've gone through this, and you can go through more points than I've gone through, but after you've gone through this, and you've sat here with me and you've listened to me, do people see Jesus in you? Do people see Jesus in the gathering? Do people see Jesus in Christianity as a whole? And if in your head right now you don't have a definitive answer or you have any doubt, it might be time to make some life changes. Start working on some stuff. Let's pray. Dear God, man, I know walking this road is hard. You tell your disciples at one point, if anyone's going to be my follower, they must pick up their cross and follow me. And I know this is extremely hard to be a Christian with everybody watching us. Sometimes you feel like you're under a microscope, or you have that friend at work or that family member who's always like, oh, you said a cuss word, or you did this, or whatnot. You're not supposed to do that. And we're not perfect. We're never going to be perfect, so I don't want anybody in here to feel like, oh gosh, I mess up like once a week or something like that. I'm just awful. No, that's not it. But if we are not constantly striving to be better, and if we do not have in our mind that welcoming mentality, that we need to reach everyone, that kindness mentality, if we don't have your traits, if we're not imitating you, then we're doing it all wrong. Sometimes just a kind person with a water bottle can speak more to the lost than a theologian who has his doctors. And so God, what I want right now is why we sing, why we sit here at the end of this. I want those people who are struggling with being examples, I want them to run to this altar, and I want them to grab somebody, and I want them to pray for strength. Pray for strength that we can live this life we're called to live. Pray for strength that we can be the example we're supposed to be. The people are watching us. We don't have a rejoice in that. So I say we hunker down and we get this done and we live the best we can and we go out there and we try to put the biggest dent in that 2.6 billion that we can. That we try to reach Asia, we try to reach Pryor, we try to reach the surrounding communities. But it always starts with the trip to the altar. You're sitting there, we're going to sing in a minute. You guys know we do an invitation every Sunday. But just because we do it every Sunday means it has to be the same for you every Sunday. I would encourage you, like I said at the beginning, we are a family. This is time for encouragement and strength with each other. This is the best time to make a life decision and a life change. And to start being a better example as you walk out those double doors. Don't miss this opportunity. Come on.
You've been so good.
everybody in this building, everybody in this room, may we leave these doors, and out there is our mission field. Out there we encounter people every day who need you. May we leave being rested, being encouraged, and may we get out there and get back to work for the day ahead, for the week ahead. In your name we pray, amen. Let me do a couple of announcements, because that's still my job. Unless, do you want to do the announcements? Oh, okay. Sometimes she does it instead of me, and she really looks forward to it, so I don't want to steal that thunder. Pastor Joy Basket, hey, speaking of a mission field, you know what tonight is? VBS. Sunday. Okay, that was a good one. VBS. Speaking of a mission field, do you know how many parents / kids / families could come in here who need a church home, or just need kindness or a welcome hand? Listen. If you haven't registered your kids for VBS, we need you to do it. I mean, you can do it when you come in tonight, but to save huge long lines, please go sign up at the table back there in the very back. So that's tonight. LP is still doing a fundraiser, the Loving People Project. It's a 50-50 fundraiser. $1 ticket. Cindy Gay, raise your hand. You can see her for a ticket right there. This helps them do all kinds of stuff, like go to Country Lane, the place out there that they serve at, nursing homes, and etc. They're trying to do a lot more stuff, feeding the homeless, trying to do a lot more activities and stuff, but they need money to do so. And you can even get involved with this. This would be awesome. They do a thing every couple months. You can swing that, go and serve a night, or go and serve an afternoon. You can do this, all right? Next week, June 10th, at night, Mom Strong. I really want to push this, and I really want to encourage you moms to come out here. Listen, being a mom, and I'm seeing this firsthand with my wife as a new mother, looks like one of the most, like the hardest thing I can imagine. And moms, I feel like a lot of times, besides Mother's Day, you guys don't get as much recognition as you guys deserve. And so I really would encourage you next week, come out. Is it at 6 or 5, Amber? 6 o'clock next Sunday night. Dads, you can watch the kids for a couple hours. You can do it. I have faith. All right? Moms, come out here for that. And then one more thing. Our youth garage sale is this Saturday from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. I got a ton of stuff, a ton of furniture. You guys want to come out here for that? It's at the Cherry Red Market. Plus the Cherry Red Market will be having deals because of our thing too. I do have to ask, ladies and men, if you bake, I'm not trying to be descriptive, but I need a few more people to help me baking some items for the bake sale. I've got a couple ladies down. The sign-up sheet is on that in the note table out there. Please sign up to bake like a cake, a pie, cookies, something simple. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. Please sign up, what we can bring, and I'll get with you whenever I can pick that up. It'll probably be Friday or Saturday. You can bring it to the garage. All right? Guys, thank you for coming today.
I'd say real quick. From behind you.
I never
from the drums. I just had to say.
I never pictured God's voice sounding like Scott. All right,
this is your conscience.
Lord.
Life groups. If you're not plugged into a life group, let me encourage you to plug into one. It's so important for you. Millennial Life Group. We will be meeting Wednesday night at the Donut Shop. We will resume our study on soul detox. So if you haven't been there yet, just come and join us. Jump right in, 18 to 30. If you're 30 already, we won't judge you. Okay. So there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And then one more thing, Amber just told me, if you are going to kids camp or your kids are going to go to kids camp most likely, or you just have questions, they're having a kids camp meeting right here, right after service, so stick around for that. Listen, we're going to get out of here with a worship song. I hope you guys have a great week, and I hope you guys go out into the world, you hit the mission field, and then you help us at VBS this whole coming week. Be praying for us too, because 80 or something kids, yeah, it gets to you. All right? Thank you guys. Oh, what?
Building fund.
Thank you. I knew I was forgetting something. Listen, we didn't do this last week because of Memorial Day. You guys know we're trying to pay off this building so we can, take care of the new building faster and whatnot. So today, besides the normal tithes and offerings, if you have any extra thing you want to give towards the building fund, there will be 2 baskets on the back, 2 chairs right there. Just drop in whatever you want. You can check out the graph in the hallway over there of how far we have to go and whatnot, okay? Thank you guys for everything. I hope you have a great week. We'll catch you tonight at VBS, all right? Let's sing and be dismissed.